Hello, hello. Yes. Hey, babe. Okay. We already had some, though. I said we already had some. It's in there or downstairs. Mm-hmm. You sent me some money? What'd you send me some money for? Oh, you need to, we'll sign up for it later. I did all that work and it still didn't set up how I wanted it to set up. Hello, hello, hello. All right, guys, we're going to get started. Welcome in the room. Let me turn this echo off. I just wanted to make sure I see what y'all see. Make sure that y'all can see the chart. Hey, IG. Unfortunately, I don't have multiple streaming yet because something is going on with TikTok. So if you want to see my chart, come on over to TikTok. All right. I am Sierra, the Wealth Empress, your day trading and credit strategy expert. Okay. Today we are going to be going over our charts. We're going to mark up all of our charts. And yes, I mark up darn near everything from NAS 100, SPX, US 30, EU, GU, GJ, UJ, you name it, I mark it up. All right. So we are going to start with NAS 100. If you are new here, I trade ICT methods with Romeo CRT range. Okay. So that's what I'm going to be marking up today. Today, I'm just going to mark up the weekly range because that's normally what I trade, the weekly range. All right. So we'll start off on Nas, and actually, because it is the end of the month, I'm gonna go to the monthly, and we're gonna see where we are from the monthly high or low. Now, I don't know why these lines are back on my chart, y'all. It took me forever to figure out how to get these stupid lines off, and now they're back. Hold on. Because I hate these lines, and I just can't. ChatGPT walked me through before. I can't remember what it told me to do. Y'all don't know, y'all better start using ChatGPT. Now, if you don't know how to trade, do not use ChatGPT to teach you how to trade because they're gonna just tell you some stuff that you already don't even know how to interpret. Okay. Click settings, appearance, scales, times, axis, session breaker, time grid. Scales and line. Time. Get a clean one. There should be a fresh one in the laundry room. Oh, I hate this so much. There aren't any more in there? Hmm. Maybe they threw two of them away because I bought five of them when I brought them. All right, y'all. I'm trying to get these lines off my chart real quick. I don't see vertical grid lines, session break, or time grid. And this happens when I sign into these stupid prop firm accounts, and then they have settings on theirs, but I'm not even signed into anything. Did I save my chart template? I hate these lines. I don't think when I go down on a lower time frame we don't have it, so I'm not gonna worry about it at this point. Okay. All right. So with Romeo CRT range, you basically just picking a candle's range. So his theory behind the candle range theory is that every candle trades into the candle before the last, which normally they do. His thing is you normally want to take TP at 50% or at the high or the low of the range, okay? So as you can see, this is last month's candle, and we have 3 months left into this candle. This candle has already started to trade back into last month's candle. So I want to see how far we are away from 50% of last candle's range. So I'm just use my rectangle tool, and then I use my magnet tool to make sure everything is precise. And as you can see, we're almost close to that 50% range. So that might just be my target for the week, okay? All right, so I'm going to delete my rectangle whenever it pops up. There it is. All right, now I'm going to go down to my weekly. This is last week's candle. I am also going to mark my CRT weekly range. I only marked the 50% because price is close to the 50% on the monthly, okay? Now I'm going to mark my high, my low, and 50% of last week's candle. And this is what I'm going to do for every chart, okay? This is all I'm going to do. I want to see what's going on, all right? Now I know once price breaks this high and retest it, I'm taking it up here to 50%. It's like a magnet, okay? For sure, for sure. All right, so I came down here to the 1 hour. I see a gap here. We could possibly pull back here or here, right? Price broke structure here. So normally when price breaks structure, take liquidity. We got to break a structure here, and then price ran liquidity here because we have these equal highs here. Price normally pulls back, and it did. It pulled back to the liquidity area perfectly. Hey, literature junkie, how are you? So you see it pull back to that liquidity area perfectly and then continued up to the high. We're marking up NAS. The market isn't open. It's Saturday. Unless you're trading cryptos. I don't really trade cryptos. I just buy and hold it. All right. So I want to see price break that high and then retest that high and then take it up to the 50%. That's pretty much all we have for NAS. So I just want to get, we're just marking up my zones, okay? So NAS is done. Next we have odd CHF. on the chart. So I'm going to go to the monthly. I want to see where we are with our monthly. And we're really far from our monthly low. So I'm not going to mark anything up on the monthly. As you can see, that was our monthly low. Price already gave us our monthly CRT. And I know that just by looking at this, price already traded into 50%, but I'll show you guys. Bam, you see that? Price already traded into 50%. It broke our lows and it's running lower. Now, what happened on here? All right, so odd CHF, it looks like this is the lowest it's been since March 2020. I mean, so Forex and futures is basically the same thing. A chart is a chart. It's just different lingo, right? Instead of lot sizes, you're doing contracts. So if you don't learn how to read the chart, you're not going to be profitable in futures either. Yeah, you can learn from me. We're here. That's what we're here to do. So just sit here and take notes. So if you're new here, I trade ICT with CRT range. And what we're doing today is marking up CRT ranges on everything so that this is one less step we have to do next week, okay? I go live daily. We'll be back here tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I am doing a $100 Forex challenge. If you want to join the group, join the inner circle for free. DM me free, and it'll be free for the first 30 days. Deposit your $100 in CoinX. Romeo came up with CRT. Now, Romeo is an ICT student, but Romeo came up with CRT, Damon. All right. All right, so we have this monthly, and it ran this monthly low on March the 20th, and it looks like price is turning back around, so I'm not going to mark up a monthly CRT here. All right, so now I come down to the weekly. I see we have a fair value gap here, and that's what it looks like price is coming to. So I am going to mark up my 50% of my fair value gap here. I just use my rectangle tool. As you can see, my outer lines aren't visible, okay, or my background. The only thing I'm worried about with my rectangle tool is my middle line, so that is extended. And then sometimes I extend the right line, sometimes I don't. I just keep it marked, okay? All right, so I go over that line with the horizontal line because if you click just the right spot on that rectangle, it'll move, and I don't like that. You see that? So I go ahead and delete that. All right, so it does look like price is heading up to our 50% of our weekly range. So I'm going to mark that, and then I'm going to mark up my weekly CRT range, which is the high and the low. I don't look like that marked the high right. There we go. The high, the low, and again, 50% of last week's candle. Since we don't have a new candle here just yet because the market hasn't opened, this is our last week's candle, okay? This pair is odd CHF. All right, so these are our zones that I'm looking for. Now, because I see that price came down here on the monthly and it ran all of these lows and then price pushed back up, I definitely believe that it's coming to this 50%. So what I want to see is price come to the top of that high and retest this area and leave me a fair value gap somewhere to get in, and then I'm going to take it up to this weekly 50%. But let's come down here to the daily. All right, so on the daily, our high of last week's candle is at 50% of this gap, and I'm pretty sure it's 50%, but let's double check. All right, so it's close, but it did reject this area. It rejected this area. I'm not going to mark this. I think I answered your question already. It's all CHF. So I'm not going to mark this just because it's super close to here and my main focus is this weekly fair value gap. So I'm not going to mark this. I know it's going to break this area if it wants to continue higher. All right, so now let's go down to the 4 hour. Okay, and here in the 4 hour, it looks like as soon as the market open, we should have an entry for a buy. Price broke this area. Let me get rid of that. All right. Price broke this area. It gave us a little mini pullback. It ran this liquidity here. We got relatively equal highs, not exactly equal, right? But price ran that liquidity and it left us a fair value gap. I would be looking for an entry on Sunday right here. Now, let's see. TP1 is back here to those equal highs. And TP2 is up here to this weekly 50%. Okay? On all CHF. So we have a 4 hour fair value gap that price is already reacting in. I want to mark this so that I can get rid of this. All right. Price hit it Friday at 5 a.m. and then Friday at 1300 is what? 12, 13, 2 p.m. At 2 p.m. Okay. So price already hit it twice. All right. So now that we come down to the 1 hour, I see that we have another gap here. We have another gap here. And then also some liquidity. Okay. You see that? These are exactly equal lows. These are exactly equal lows. So now I want to see the liquidity be ran and come down to this gap to get an entry, okay? And let me show y'all how equal these two are. This is why I like to use my magnet tool. Y'all see that? Let me zoom in. You always want to see liquidity be ran. We're marking up odd CHF. We're pretty much marking up everything. So right now, can y'all see that up here in the top left corner? You'll see what pair that I'm on, okay? All right, so this is why I like to use my magnet tool because it gets it precisely on the wick. And then you just use your shift bar to straighten up that line and it'll give you a perfect straight line. And as you can see, we had a wick here and this wick came down. It did not run this wick. It did not run this wick. So now we want to see, since we see that price ended. So my pink candles are bearish and my black candles are bullish, okay? Price ended in a bullish manner, okay? Because price tried to reach up here. Then it pushed down and it closed all the way down here. It didn't even leave a wick, okay? This is when you start to read your candlesticks. It left an itty bitty baby wick. Y'all see that? So price is coming back down for this liquidity. All right. So my entry would be here. And I'm going to set my alert because I want to wait for this liquidity to be ran. My entry would be here. My TP1 is the weekly high. This is the weekly high. TP1, move your stop loss to entry, take partials. TP2, that weekly 50%. Odd, any odd pair is a slow moving pair. This could easily be a swing trade. Just depends on what news is looking like for the week, okay? All right. Stop loss below the candle that created the gap. Below the candle that created the gap. All right. Now, since market open, stuff happens. Monday really, isn't it still trying to test that zone again? Would you want to still wait for an entry point? That's what I was just about to say. So since Sunday and Monday's stuff just Mondays is like normally a day that you want to wait around, but sometimes Sunday comes back in and finishes the trend from last week. So I am going to wait for this liquidity to be ran, and then I'm going to wait on an engulfing candle to show me that price is ready to move back up. Okay, and then I will enter. All right. So we're looking out at this 1 hour fair value gap, and I'm going to set my alert. Delete that. And when my alert comes off, then I'll come back to the chart and I will post on TikTok when I'm entering, okay? We're marking up all CHF. No, I don't use any moving averages. My chart is clear. The only thing I use is fair value gaps, order blocks, breaker blocks, stuff like that. And then price action. All right. So this 1 hour candle, this fair value gap right here, I set my alert. I set my alert here because we have liquidity sitting right here. So I know that this liquidity needs to be ran. I want to see this liquidity be ran, and then I want to see some type of entry candle, whether it's evening star, morning star, engulfing candle, a pin bar, something like that, okay? Just want to see some type of rejection showing me that it's moving back up to the upside. So that's what we have for RCHF, and I am going to mark that one yellow because we already got an entry already on that. All right, now we're going to go to GBP CAD. All right, my chart is clear. We're going to go to the monthly. All right, so the monthly CRT has already happened. I know that just by looking at the candle. All right, this was last month's candle. Price ran last month's low, and of course, it's higher than 50% of the candle. So the monthly CRT has already played out. Hold on. Let me put my magnet tool on, and let me show y'all this monthly CRT real quick. Let's mark that up, and let me show y'all how to catch these CRT trades. I feel like this ain't right. Hold on. It's at the bottom. Okay. All right, so that's 50%. And then you mark your low of the candle. And again, I like my magnet tools because if you see, you just scroll right over it and it just grabs it. It just instantly, if it wants to do it. Okay. See that? How it just instantly grabbed it? It just grabbed it. You don't have to be like, oh, where is it? Let me make sure it's right. Just bam, magnet tool. All right. Let's go down to the 1 hour. Yep, candle range theory with ICT. Yep, this is GBP CAD. All right, so this was our low. This was our 50%. This was our high. Okay? I caught GBP CAD last week. It took forever to freaking play out. It took forever. Forever, but it's cool. All right, so price came and it ran the low. Remember, this line is our low. It came underneath it. It came back in the zone. It gave a fair value gap, but it did not respect it because it came down and it broke it again. Okay? Came back up. Didn't give us a fair value gap. Somewhat started to consolidate sideways. Came back out again. Now we came back in and we broke structure. You always want to see price trade outside of the range, come back into the range, break structure, and leave a fair value gap. I'm sure we probably got a better looking entry on a smaller time frame. Let's see. All right, on the 30-minute. Let's see what it looked like on the 15. The 15 gave a perfect entry. All right, so when you're reading structure and you want to know where price is breaking structure, You want to follow the last structure point that took you to your last low or your last high, okay? So in this case, when I am intraday trading, I follow internal structure, which is on the 15-minute. Halicon, I don't think so. I don't know what's in it for me. Okay, so I like to do the 15-minute structure. Okay, so this was our lower high. This isn't a lower low because this was right here is our last low. Okay, this was our last low, and then price came up to here, and then price gave us a lower low here. So if we follow this back up, this is our lower high, and then this is our next lower low. So this is our last structure point that took us down to our low, okay? So this is our break of structure here. Oops. Over. All right. And as you can see, price consolidated in this area because we had our break of structure here, and then we had our last week's low here, okay? And it just played around sideways in this area. We got our break of structure. Now price came inside the zone, but it didn't give us any type of confirmation to get in, okay? It came back down, retested that break of structure, then it gave us another high because it's higher than this area, right? And it came back down. We don't have any confirmation until support zone again. I don't do support. This was monthly CRT. All right. So it was this monthly area right here, this monthly low. Okay. All right. So now from this point, we just want to keep marking our structure areas until price gives us a gap. So it broke structure here. Majority of the time when price breaks structure, you're going to get a pullback. Majority of the time when price runs liquidity, you're going to get a pullback, okay? So we broke structure here, right? Price gave us a pullback. It came outside the range. Now this is our next area that we want to keep an eye on. Price broke structure here. This time it held up inside our range. All right. So we got our break of structure, and then we got a pullback to a order block. Some people call these supply and demand. Some people call them order block. Okay. The last down candle before the up move. All right. As you can see, price created liquidity here because we got these two equal lows, but they weren't ran, so price is waiting to come back and get that. Okay. But this candle right here closed on top of 50%. It closed on top of that. You see that? Let me make sure y'all can see that. All right. So this is our order block. We had a gap here, but we wasn't sure if price was going to hold up on this gap until it broke that structure. Okay. So now it's letting us know that, okay, I'm trying to continue higher because I keep breaking structure. It broke it there. It broke it there. Now it came back and pulled back to this order block. And now this was to let us know, okay, now let's get in to buy. All right. And we knew that because price closed on top of 50% of this order block range. Y'all see that candle? These are the candles that we want to look for. Price is always going to wick through. It does this on fair value gaps too. Sometimes it'll come straight to 50% and then take off, and then sometimes it'll come and run the low on the gap or run the low on the order block and then close above. As long as it closes above, when price gets on top of these areas, then you're good. You could have entered here, or candle range theory, every candle trades back into the next, right? You can take that rectangle tool again, put it on that candle, and enter at 50%. Okay? So perfectly 50% was right back on top of that order block. Okay? You never want to like just enter at a high of a candle. People say, oh, you get those bullish engulfings and then you enter up here, and then they end up in all that drawdown. Wait for price to trade back into that candle. Wait for price to pull back, okay? That way you'll lessen your drawdown. All right? So our entry was right here, and then TP 50% of the range. And it hit 50% of the range perfectly. All right? So that's how you do the CRT. So this was a monthly CRT. It played out it took a day for 234 pips. What could 234 pips do for you in your life? Right? We just want to wait on these confirmations. All right, so now let's mark it up for the week, okay? So I'm going to leave my my monthly 50%. So many TikTok traders today. Well, I mean, a lot of people are being introduced into the market. How you doing, Mr. Gunner? I'm pretty sure you're a mister. Probably a bot. Have a good day. All right. So, hi FPS, how you doing? Let's go back to the monthly. I'm going to delete everything but my monthly 50% just because we're near that area, okay? And I know, oh, I just deleted it. And I know we're near that area because of how the candlestick looks. And let me show y'all that. So, if you don't know how to read candlesticks, right? Last month's candle closed here. It got up to here, but it closed here. This month's candle opened right where last month's candle closed. Y'all see that perfectly. It traded up some. It came all the way down. And now it's back up into this area. Yeah, you can use your fib. But I tend to just use my rectangle, right? Just use your rectangle tool. Double click it, go to the settings, and click middle line. And that helps you map it out easy. Or you can use the GAN fib tool, the GAN box, and use that high to low, and then use that 0.5. But I tend to show that I like to use my rectangle tool because it's just easier, right? We want to make it easier. And then if you use your fib, low to the high, 50%, it's all the same. So just use your rectangle tool. It's so easy, right? Rectangle tool, middle line, bam. Ain't got to worry about all the other stuff. All right. You're welcome. All right. So we have our 50% of our monthly marked. Now let's go down to the weekly. Look at that. Price traded above. It came down into this gap here. We have a gap here. It couldn't hold. That's why it did all of that. It couldn't hold. You see how it traded above? Y'all see how it traded above that 50%? And then headed back up to 50% of the monthly candle. Now we want to mark up our weekly range. That's all I'm worried about. This helps us not to over project our TPs and our stop losses, right? Although that 230 pips in a day was nice, right? Yeah, Forex, but as long as you can read the chart, you can use it, Forex, options, whatever. As long as you can read the chart and candlesticks, it's all the same. It's all the same, just different language. Okay. So what was I saying? Um, these CRT zones help us to not overextend our TPs, right? That 230 pips was nice, but that's on a monthly candle range, right? You don't always get those monthlies. Now you get those, I tend to notice like towards the end of the month, but I check it every week. Like, okay, that monthly low was ran, let's get that. All right. Now, last week on GBP CAD, it ran that weekly high, but it doesn't look like it traded to the 50% all the way. It didn't. It did not. It stuck around this monthly 50%. All right. I actually would say don't worry about chart patterns, right? I tried to learn a lot of those chart patterns. They're trash. Worry about the CRT range and then using ICT for your entries. Like run on liquidity, worry about market structure. Okay. Not true. I mean, it is what it is, but head and shoulders don't really work. You map out a head and shoulders and then show me how if the head and shoulders work for you. Okay. A lot of those patterns don't work. Now, if you have like wedges and stuff like that, it's just like a trend line break and retest because that's all it is. It's a market trading within this area and then breaking out. So I say focus on your zones and learning where you are in the market. Yeah, you don't see them every day, but some of those chart patterns are trash. All right, so now we're gonna mark up our weekly. I'm gonna keep my 50% because the higher the time frame, the more price is a magnet to those areas, right? So this is why we didn't get our full weekly because price is kind of just sitting around this area, and we can go down and look. Y'all see that? How many times price touched that? How many times price touched this area? It's a magnet to this area. Like all the way over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Price is still hanging around this area. Okay. So I want to make sure before I trade away from this area. All right. We're going to mark up our weekly CRT on GBP CAD. All right. So I just use my horizontal line, my magnet tool. You mark the high, the low. Use your rectangle box. Go from the low to the high or high to low, don't matter. And then 50%. All right. So next week or this coming week, price is almost at that 50. Hold on. Hey, Moot. Chart patterns don't work. I read the chart this pair. And then I guess that's what it is. It depends on what chart. I literally was like breaking my mind trying to learn some of those chart patterns. And it was just like, what is going on? Y'all, I'm doing this because I'm trying to figure out where my rectangle is. I like to delete it like that random purple line. I don't want that there. So before we go down, I'm trying to delete it. There we go. All right. So we got our high, our low, and then 50% of our weekly. Now I'm going to come down to the daily. I want to see what I can see on this daily. Now with this, I do see a trend line. A trend line is just 2 points that was rejected, right? I see it because I have this long drop here, this long drop here. I also see liquidity up here too, right? But because I've been practicing looking for that, I can spot it like that. Now I want to see where we are on this side of the trend line. So this is how I mark my trend lines to get them as accurate as possible. I just use my trend line and a magnet tool. I want to start at the highest point, and then I'll come to the next point right there, and then I extend it right. All right. We're really close to this trend line. It hasn't hit it again. We're really close to this trend line. All right, now we'll come down to the 4 hour. We have liquidity right here too. I'm gonna move this real quick. Y'all see that? Those equal highs? And that's at the high, which is probably telling me that since we're this close to this trend line and we have liquidity up here, we might just be moving down to move back up, right? Looking at this 4 hour, price has stayed inside of this area right here. Y'all see that? It stayed inside this area for 20 hours. 20 hours. This is trading view. This is trading view. All right. All right, so this looks like a wedge also because I come down here and I see a wick here and a wick here. Let me see what this trend line looks like. Bam. Okay. So we have this little wedge here. See how price hit that? It came up here, but it didn't hit that. I want to double check. I always have to double check. Yeah, it came near it, but it did not hit it. All right, so let's go back to the 1 hour. Let's go back to the 1 hour. Now, I see this liquidity up here, and price came so close to this trend line, but price is messing around. Yeah, we're going to get to EU. I'm literally going to do every pair. This is what I do every week. I mark up every pair, and then I'll wait for price to run the low or the high and then show me what it's going to do. Yeah. Hey, Neil, you want to learn? Come over to TikTok. I can't show my chart on TradingView right now. Yep, I set my alerts. Yep. So what I see right here is because this is our 50% of our monthly, and price gave us a gap right here beautifully. We could possibly trade down to this trend line, but I also see a gap right here. So I am going to mark up this gap. This would be my area of interest. This would be my area of interest. I want to see what happens when price gets to this area. All right, and this is where I'm going to set my alert. Crossing down. Hey, Tay. Actually, what time? This was very impromptu. I'm glad y'all showed up because the last Saturday I came on here, I guess everybody's at the club, baby. Wasn't nobody on here. So y'all let me know what time y'all want me to be on here every day, and I'll be on here because, baby, I'm at home. I am at home. RSI or oscillator. No indicators. This is trading view. This is trading view. Okay. So this is all we're gonna do right now for this. I've marked up my high, my low, my 50% of my weekly. I've also marked up the 50% of the monthly because as we saw, the price is still really attracted to this monthly trend line. Not monthly trend line, I'm sorry, monthly 50% of the candle range, right? Price is somewhat consolidating because we don't have a new high. Our new high would be here, right? And our new low would be here, okay? So now we'll just wait for Sunday to open, Monday, whenever price comes to here. I want to see if it's going to come here and then trade back up. Now, I wouldn't stop at this trend line just because I have these equal highs right here, and these equal highs is my last week's high, okay? What made me want to trade live? Because I see a lot of people saying they want to learn, and of course they want to learn for free. Learning how to trade is expensive. I've invested so much money into learning how to trade, and it's very much so financial freedom if you can understand it. And I've bought so many courses and pretty much just compile all the courses together. Now I do have a course and I have a community. Like I said, we are going to do $100 to $1,000 Why am I losing my words? Challenge, okay? If y'all want to join the inner circle the first 30 days for free, just DM me free and we're going to grow your money, okay? I believe in people proving, before you just outright give them your money, okay? So, no, don't do it. All unchosen. Don't do it. You don't. Who are you? You're not even in the community. And how you not gonna do free? Who don't do free? Who don't do free? DM me free. Send it to my DM and then I'll send you the link. Free never helps. Well, if you actually go back to my page, like I said, I called Cat CHF Trade on my page for free. On my page for free. And you could have actually taken it. But did you? No. So by chosen, I don't play that around here. Open to their strat. Am I open to another strat? No, because listen, I've tried so many strategies and this has what has been proven to work. Learning where liquidity is, learning where these gaps is, and then adding in Romeo's CRT zones. Adding in these zones was top tier because literally I was one of those people that overextended the trade because every trade isn't going to go for 100 pips. Every trade isn't going to go for 200 pips, right? Some trades you just have to know that it's only going to be 20 or 30 pips. And that's okay if you have a good risk to reward. But then you can also be like, no, I'm not going to take this and let me look for something else. That's why I mark up everything. That's why I mark up everything. So that I can find the best trade. Right, the range. All right, let's go to CJ, CHF JPY. We're going to go look at the monthly and let's see where we are on the monthly. All right, so looking at this monthly, I guess this is another pattern that I do respect. The flag pattern is you have this long pole and then you have this like sideways consolidation right here, right? Mark the monthly CRT here because price isn't near this monthly high. Price ended up here, right? And we have 3 days left, so it's looking like price is going to close on the higher side, but we don't know. So now we're going to go down to the weekly, all right? And right here within the weekly, what do I see? Let's see if y'all see what I see. It's been 4 years. I'm very much still intermediate. But baby, when I tell you I've been on these charts night and day, my dad would come in and be like, "You still looking at them squiggly lines?" I'm like, I gotta learn. Yup, Chris, we're inside a fair value gap. All right, so here we go. Price hit that 50% perfectly. So I am going to mark just in case price wants to come back to that area. All right. Now I am going to use this for my weekly low instead of my true weekly low. Because if price comes back down here, then I know that it's probably going to bounce off of it again. Hey, Kay, how you doing? Hey, Hidden Gem. I'm glad y'all think I'm a good teacher because for the longest I was like, I don't think I can teach this. But then when you really start to understand it, I'm telling y'all, when Romeo dropped that CRT, the CRT zones, knowing the range that you're in, that truly helps. That truly helps because overextending TPs is a thing. This is Trading View. This is Trading View. All right. So I'm going to use that as my weekly low. And then I'm going to use my rectangle tool to go from the low to the high. Then I'm using my horizontal line to mark my 50% of that weekly. All right. And then another horizontal line and my magnet tool to make sure I get that high. All right. So I do see a trend line. I see a trend line because we had a rejection, price sold down, another rejection, price sold down. So this looks like it was a break and retest on a higher time frame. So let's see. In order to get an accurate trend line, I use my trend line tool, and then I start at that high, and then I come to my next point, and look at that, break and retest perfectly. That's beautiful. Okay, so we got a break and retest, and we got a fair value gap, and then we got this bullish engulfing candle letting us know that price wants to move higher. We do have a gap. Okay, are we back? I'm sorry, y'all, we froze. When I get that notification, I promise y'all, is I was doing this on Streamlabs, and then TikTok did this TikTok studio, and now every now and then I freeze. So I just applied to be able to stream back through Streamlabs so that we'll have these less disconnections. But right for now, we just got to deal with it. Okay, so I was saying I didn't want to overextend up here to this gap because that's 442 pips, right? But in a week, I mean, this weekly candle shot up 697, so it could be possible that price is just gonna push up to there. But I'm not gonna hold it to see because one thing I hate doing is holding trades over Friday. Okay, that's one thing I hate doing. HTN, do you want to be blocked? That's the question. All right. So now we have our break and retest of this trend line. Price came back to 50% of this gap, and then price pushed up. So let's go down to the daily and let's see what else we got. Oh yeah, y'all see how that price pushed up off that gap beautifully, beautifully. The black thing is given. The block thing. Oh, baby, fair value gaps will get your life. Okay. Fair value gaps, and then we also have an order block right here. Okay, my pink candles are bearish, my black candles are bullish. So this was that down move before that up, and it looks like it came to 50% of that. Yep, and closed on top of that. So we're definitely looking for buys on CJ. Now, I see another trend line because we got wick rejection here and wick rejection here. I see another trend line. So what you can do is wait for price to get on top of this 50% of that weekly and get on top of this trend line, and then retest it and then take it back up to the high. This is a nice zone. That's 146 pips. There's no need to be greedy. Not before you get blocked. I'm not gonna block you. You've been good. Oh, you talking about me blocking people? Before I get blocked, please do not lose money with people who don't actually trade. What? What are we analyzing? We're analyzing CHF Yeah, we'll get to EU. It's on this list. It's on this list. All right. So we can have another break and retest moment. Let's come down and let's see what the 4 hour is giving us. All right, let's tighten up this trend line. Let's tighten up this trend line. I'm gonna do here. All right. All right, price left us a gap. Price left us a gap beautifully. Now this is what I want to see. If this happens, I'm in there. Price break this trend line. This ain't my path tool. Hold on. Price breaks this trend line, then come back and retest this gap, and then come and take out these highs. All day I'm in that. All day. It's great risk to reward. My entry will be here. TP will be here. Stop loss at the bottom of the candle that created the gap. It's a 2-to-1. 61 pip stop loss, 169 pip take profit. It's too small. that better? I'm looking at my phone, trying to see what y'all see. How did I edit like what? I'm not sure what you mean. All right, y'all see that gap right here? This is a 4-hour gap. This is a 4-hour gap. This gap right here is probably what's going to send price back down into this gap. Okay. Then you want to wait on your confirmation candles. How do I make the gaps? This rectangle, I use the rectangle tool. It's right over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th one down, where you have your brush, your highlighter, your arrow, the rectangle tool. And then I just edit. I do no border. I put my opacity to 0 or 1%, because you see, if I go back and do a border, where's my border? The outline is not showing. And then I took the background off of the rectangle. That's on 0. The only thing I want to see is the middle line. So I have my middle line checked, and then I have my extend right checked, just because I like it like that. I don't know. You don't have to have it like that. How do you know where the gap is? Good question. Let's see. Let me just hide this. All right. Fair value gaps is when the institution, the market makers or whatever, they come in the market and they put a lot of money on this trade. And they put so much money in the trade that it leaves a gap, which is a fair value gap. That's how you know they came into the market. And as you can see, this was a bullish candle. It was a lot of high volume, very low wick. There's no wick towards the bottom. Hold on, let me zoom in. There's barely any wick towards the bottom, and then a little bit of wick at the top. You see how this candle did not trade all the way into this candle? So normally you'll get 3 candles, right? You'll have a wick, you'll have the next candle, and then this candle will normally trade back to this wick. It'll fill in the whole candle. So let me show you. Normally, like right here, there's no gaps. These candles traded back into the next, right? Although it traded higher, it came back into it. It didn't do that here. It left the gap. It didn't do that here. It left the gap. So those are your fair value gaps. What about the fair value gaps on the left side that hasn't gotten filled? So technically, this right here is a bearish fair value gap. We're going to delete everything because I was going to say price broke structure, but price didn't break structure because this was our last structure point. But this is a bearish fair value gap because price was moving down. All right. And what you would normally see if price was giving you a bearish structure, you will want to see price come here and then trade down. Right? And make another low. Okay? Or if you have an inversion, I was thinking that. Let me try to change my cursor real quick. If I can think of how to change my cursor off the top of my head. Because of those lines. All right. All right, I took away the lines. Yes, I have a group. DM me free, and it's free for the first 30 days. We are doing a $100 to $1,000 growth challenge. DM me free is free for the first 30 days. Okay. So because this was moving bearishly, again, my pink candles are bearish and my black candles are bullish. Okay. This did break structure. I had to double check. It broke structure because this was our last pullback that gave us our high. Okay. So price did break structure. All right, so now we have this bearish fair value gap right here. Let me zoom in again so y'all can see that gap. Y'all see that? It's like a hole. There's no wicks here. If you look at these other candles, there's a tiny gap right here. There's a tiny gap right here. But normally, you want to see those wicks like connect. You don't want to see any space. And that's a gap. Well, no, that trend wouldn't have been a loss because we were going to wait to enter for our confirmations. Okay. We just change our bias. That's another thing with trading. You can't stick to a bias. You got to let the market show you what it's doing. That's why when I first started trading, I would stick to a bias and market would be selling and it'd be like, oh, it's just a pullback. Get in here. I'm going to get in here. And then you'd be like, well, why is it still going down? Because you stuck to your bias versus being nimble and allowing the market to show you what it's doing. Okay. So this is a gap. This is a gap. Y'all see that? There's an open space between this wick and this wick. But as you can see with the other candles, there's no gaps. The wicks trade back and the candles trade back into each other perfectly. Candles trade back into each other, not leaving any space. It left the space here. We had a gap here. Price reacted at this gap. See that? This gap right here, price reacted. It came up, took out this high, took out this liquidity here, but it couldn't trade any higher. All right. So this is a bearish fair value gap. I thought I had that mark. There we go. So normally what, you can't see this, the cross tool? If I make it yellow, I just didn't want the lines. Hold on. Nah, yellow you cannot see. There's no way to take the lines away. Can y'all see it now? Minutes, but I do use the higher time frame areas for zones. If price breaks structures, swing high, do you look for trades in the opposite direction? Yes, you want to follow structure. You definitely want to follow structure. The only reason why I was saying buys is because we also want to stay within our CRT zone. So, how do I explain this? CRT doesn't always follow structure. Okay? CRT is really catching the reverse on structure. is waiting on liquidity to be ran and then price to trade back into the other candle. Okay? So that's why I was saying I was looking for buys. I deleted it and will remark it. Okay? So I trade ICT with CRT zones. So ICT, I'm looking for as far as entries, order blocks, breaker blocks, fair value gaps, and inversion fair value gaps. Okay? So fair value gaps is this. This will be a fair value gap. And what would make it an inversion gap is if price trades above it and then comes back and retests it and then continues higher. And then what makes it a valid bearish fair value gap is just price coming and then trading lower. Okay? And the same with the order block. Okay? It's the exact same with the order block. Order block is just a down candle before a push up or the up candle before the push down. Okay? 97K on Bitcoin. We can look at Bitcoin. I can mark it up. All right. So do y'all understand fair value gaps, inversion fair value gaps, order blocks, and breaker blocks? Breaker block, a breaker block is just order block that was already traded through, and an inversion is just a fair value gap that was already traded through. Okay, but you treat it the same. Once price comes to it, you're just looking for price to give you your rejection candles, or you're looking for price to trade through it and then come back and retest it. Bitcoin is at a fair value gap. Bitcoin is way down on my list, but we'll get to Bitcoin. All right. So we already established that CJ is in a flag pattern, and a flag pattern is just a long handle, and then price starts to move sideways. Okay. We could mark up this trend line here on the monthly, right? And price broke outside of that. Now we'll come back down to the weekly. This is why we was looking for buys. Because price came to this weekly fair value gap. All right. And it hit it and it closed on top. This is why we were looking for buys. All right. And then I'm going to mark up my weekly CRT range, which is my weekly high. 50% of this range. And just on this one, I'm not going to mark the low because the low is so close to this 50% of this weekly fair value gap. I'm not going to mark my low. This is going to act as my low because if price comes back, runs this, and then gets back on top of it, I know it's coming back up. All right. Now we came down to our daily, and we saw that we had a trend line. I can mark up my trend line a little better. And we had a break and retest on our trend line. All right, y'all see that? Price broke out, and then it came down and retested this area, retested this fair value gap. It gave us this big bullish engulfing candle, which is letting us know that it's moving back towards the upside. That's why we're looking for buys on here. All right. Now we're going to come down to the 4-hour. And I saw another trend line. We have rejection here and then here. This is why I said we can wait. Should it go through the bearish fair value gap? Yes. This is why I said we want to wait. We want to wait for and get on top and then come back and retest this gap. So more than likely, we have this bearish fair value gap here. And all right, I was waiting for it to finish freezing. More than likely, price is going to do this. It's going to come up to this bearish fair value gap. And then it's going to come back down into this one. And then we want to break above it. When we break above it, we want price to either come back to here and retest or here. Okay? But we're looking for entries around this area or come back to this trend line. Okay? And then we want to take it back up to the weekly high. Now, another reason why I know that it shouldn't come back any lower is because we had our consolidation here. Consolidation is normally liquidity. Consolidation, equal highs, equal lows is normally liquidity. This is CHF, JPY. This gap is on the 4-hour. And then the main gap that we were looking at is on the weekly. All right. So we had our consolidation here. It created all these equal lows. It created all this liquidity. I don't want to extend that. And then it ran our liquidity. That's always what you want to see. You want to see liquidity be ran. How do you point out liquidity? Liquidity is consolidation. Liquidity is equal highs. Liquidity is equal lows. All right. I can come back. We had equal highs right here on GBPK. Y'all see that? Perfectly equal. The way that I like to make sure that it hasn't been ran, I use my magnet tool again. Magnet tool, trend line. Put it on that first one. Draw it out. Use your shift key so that you can get it perfectly straight. If you can see that, y'all see that? It hasn't been ran. It's so equal. It's ridiculous. It's so equal. When you have liquidity, that's where you know that the market is coming back to that area, okay? Now, we don't know when, but as long as the market is continuing to trend in that area, then yes, that can be a take profit area, okay? So we have this liquidity here on GBP CAD. Y'all see that? They so equal. Now, if this was higher, if this candle was higher than that candle, if this wick ended up here, then that would no longer be liquidity because it ran this wick already, okay? So you want them to be equal or relatively equal, and by relatively equal, I mean something like this, right? You see how that's higher than this one, but this one isn't higher than that one? You want that second one to always be lower than the first one, because that means that it wasn't ran. If this one was higher, then it means that it ran that one, okay? And you don't want that to happen. Let me put my line back. There we go. All right, let's go back to CJ. We are on CHF. I'm just waiting for it to stop freezing. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get through this today. So price ran our liquidity and broke bullish. All right. It left us a bullish fair value gap. Now we want to see price come here to this bearish fair value gap and pull back into that one. We want to wait for this trend line to be broken. And then once this trend line is broken, now let me show y'all what the trend line break looks like, because you don't want to get in and then it still plays around in this wedge, right? You don't want it to do this. Let's see. You don't want it to wick on the outside and then come back in and then trade back down. That's what you don't want to do before you get in. That's why you wait on a solid break and retest. And we had a good break and retest last week on GJ. So let me show y'all what that looks like real quick. Let me stop playing with myself. There we go. liquidity is formed with large movement if it's supply or demand. What I've been seeing with supply and demand is basically the same as a order block area. Okay. All right. Let me find that. Here we go. All right. Y'all see that? So we had our trend line here. All right. Not everyone is familiar. Yeah, that is true. But I think I answered their question as far as what liquidity, what you want to look for: equal highs, equal lows, and consolidation. Okay. All right. So with these trend line break and retest, right? This was our trend line, right? Price played along this trend line so bad before it decided to go higher. What I have noticed with these trend lines, look at this. 9 times out of 10, there is going to be a fair value gap near those trend lines for you to enter. Okay? So price broke it retested it, but it did not trade higher. It traded lower, retested it again. We actually had another gap here. We had another gap here. Price just straight broke through it. It completely did not respect this bullish fair value gap. It played along until it gave us this sideways movement here in between the fair value gap, right here, in between the fair value gap 50% and the trend line. Consolidation. Consolidation. Price ran this liquidity. Price ran this liquidity and then decided to take off. It took off, then it came back, retested the 50% again, then decided to trade higher. Okay? So you always want to look for a liquidity run. You always want to look for a liquidity run. Otherwise, you'll end up becoming liquidity. And last week, I became liquidity on this GJ trade. I sure did. It came down, hit my stop loss with news, and then it went into my direction. I was mad. I was mad. But it's okay. All right. So y'all see that liquidity? And then a trend line break and retest. Okay. So that was a nice trade on GJ. All right. So we're basically looking for the same thing on CJ this week. All right. So remember, we got all of our confirmations. That's why, again, we were looking for a buy. Right? Price came into this 50% of this weekly fair value gap. That's one confirmation. It pushed up nicely. Price broke this trend line, extremely bullish. This candle was extremely bullish. Then it came down and retested it. Okay? Now we're sitting in this wedge. I'm going to zoom out. But this is also a flag pattern here on the hourly too. Y'all see that? This is the pole, and then this wedge is the flag. This is why I said we want to wait for price to break out of this area, break out of this area, and then come back to this gap or 50%. This was 50% of our weekly. Okay? So come back to this gap or 50% of our weekly. We need to see this retest. We want to see our consolidation. We want to see liquidity run. And then we want to take price up to last week's high. All right. So that's what we're looking for on CJ. No entries, no confirmations just yet. We're going to wait for our market to open and then show us what it wants to do, because yet again, price could come underneath this gap and then trade down here because we are inside of this wedge, right? Price could very much so hit the top of this trend line, because what does it do when it hit a trend line? It hits a trend line, it traded down. Hit the trend line, trade it down. It could hit the trend line, trade it down again, and then decide to trade back up. Okay? And then even if it does trade down again, that still aligns with our weekly CRT. Because with your weekly CRT, you want to see a high or a low ran. Okay? So either way, we're going to get in the trade. We're just going to be patient about it. All right? All right, let's go to OddCAD. Let's see what OddCAD has for us. We're going to start on our monthly. OddCAD. These odd pairs wasn't playing. I don't know what happened. I can't remember what happened. We'll look at Bitcoin. It's all the way at the bottom. Yeah, I do trade gold. I don't think it's even on my list, so we'll add it to my list. I trade gold every now and then. Right now, gold is very bullish, very much so bullish, because of all that stuff that's happening, with Sir President in the office. And if you don't know, when the dollar is low, gold is high, right? That's why it's XAU USD. Okay, they trade against each other. All right, so odd dropped all the way down to April 2020 lows and ran that. As you can see, it ran that. All right, and then pulled back up. Now I am going to mark my monthly CRT, because where are we? We're really close to this monthly low. So this is an area that I think price is going to come back to, because remember, the higher the time frame, CRT, the more price is a magnet to those areas. All right. So that's all I'm going to mark. I'm not going to mark my 50%, because it looked like 50% was already hit. Yep, it was hit. Now I'm going to come down to my weekly. All right. And I can see that price gave us a gap when it gave us this really sharp bearish, but it looks like price is on top of the gap. So let's see. All right, price is right at 50%. So I am going to mark 50% of this gap, because this is a significant area. Okay, we can go down to the hourly and let's look. So this was 50% of that. Y'all see how price hitting it several times, hasn't traded away from it. It's a significant area. So I'm going to mark this area, okay? Now I'm going to go back to the weekly. I am going to mark my high and my low of the weekly also. And I'm going to mark my high and the low, and then I'm going to see where my weekly 50% is. If it's really close to that other weekly, I'm not going to mark it. Let's see, because I don't want too many lines. Yeah, it's only 16 pips away. So I'm not going to mark my weekly 50%, because I already have this weekly 50% of this fair value gap, and they're only 14 pips away. They're only 14 pips away. Okay? And this weekly fair value gap is stronger than my weekly CRT zone. All right? So now I'm just going to zoom out real quick. Let's see. All right, we don't have anything down there. Now we'll go to our daily. And if you look here on our daily, price has somewhat been moving sideways, right? We don't have any new highs or any new lows. So this is technically a little consolidation range. And then as you can see, when I went down to the hourly, it just kept touching that area. We're going to look at Bitcoin. Good night, Scott. Have a good evening. All right, so we're going to go down to the 4 hour. And let's see what we can see on this 4 hour. Hold on. I see a purple line back there. There it is. All right. And on the 4 hour, y'all can see consolidation. Consolidation. What I want to see. Okay. Now, what do we have here? What do we have here? Price is really just in this area. We got a tiny little, like, somewhat of a trend line here, but I don't really want to mark that. You easily fall in love with women that trade. That's funny. Listen, I want to pop up on your feed, like on your for you page. Come on, join my group. You can see me every day, but you can't fall in love with me. Okay. Now we move to the hourly, and what do I see up here? Liquidity. Liquidity right here. But because price is moving sideways, right? I don't know. I don't know. I can mark up this trend line. We can do that. Then I don't even really like that one. I like that one better. But I really don't like either. Right? So odd cat is definitely gonna have to give me some more. This is all I can do right now. This is all I can do. I don't see anything else. We're not necessarily gonna force it. Because this is internal structure. This is internal structure. On the higher time frame, structure wise, yeah, it's consolidation. Y'all see that? On the higher time frame, what is liquidity? Um, so I did a video on liquidity on my page, and then I went over it already, so you might be new. But liquidity is just an area in the market to where we know the market makers is going to come back to. So I normally use liquidity as TP areas, right? And I identify it as consolidation or equal highs and equal lows, okay? So if I come back down to this 1 hour, these are relatively equal. They're not perfectly equal, but they're relatively equal, okay? Right here. Now, I think these are perfectly equal. Let's see. No, they're not. You see, this one is a little bit shorter than this one, but they're not, it's not even like a whole pip difference. It's not even a whole pip difference. Y'all see that 0.1? So that's relatively equal. Do I scalp? I scalp Nas, but I found out that the weekly CRT works on Nas too. So I used to scalp Nas. Let's say that. So no, mainly intraday. Mainly intraday. All right. So if we go back to the weekly, right? Y'all see that? There's no structure here. This is consolidation. This gave us a new low, and then it immediately turned back around. Is price going to drop lower? I don't know. That's a steep drop. Whoever caught this, that was beautiful. Because that was in a week. That was 500 pips in a week on odd CAD, but normally odd CAD ranges, what, 163 pips? Let's see what this one was. 200. You're new? Okay. We'll just keep tapping in. Just keep joining the live and you will learn. But liquidity is equal highs, equal lows, and consolidation, okay? So I suggest you get a notebook. And then why are we trading odd cat when there's better markets? There are better markets. And I don't just trade odd cat, I mark up everything. So that's your answer. So if you're new, I suggest you get a notebook and then you write down everything that you learn every time you come to the live, okay? But like he said, there are better markets. Odd cat is consolidating. We don't have any no structure really, right? There's some internal structure. It said I froze, but it don't look like I froze. But no real structure, which is why we're getting this sideways movement up in here, okay? So only thing we can do is wait. That's the only thing we can do. Although there's better structure, I mean, there's still pips is pips, right? This whole move was 100 pips, okay? Sheesh, guys, I'm finna go to gold next, okay? I will go to gold next. All right, but right now, all we can do is wait. So we have our zones marked up, and we'll see what happens on tomorrow and Monday. All right, let's find gold because y'all finna have a heart attack if I don't mark up gold or Bitcoin. I don't even think I have gold on my watch list. What do I owe on the chart? All right, this is an old markup on gold. This is an old CRT range. We all the way up here. This is the last time I traded gold was in February. All right, let's go to our monthly. Let's see. As y'all can see, gold is looking like indices. It's just straight buys, right? This is what you buy and hold. Put this in your portfolio, wait on a pullback, and you buy and hold gold, okay? All right, so I'm not going to mark up a monthly CRT because we are far from last month's high. So we're going to mark up our weekly CRT. And as you can see, last week's CRT played out because it ran that high and then it traded back in to 50%. Let me show y'all that it hit 50%. You'll see that? It hit 50%. So we're going to mark up this week's CRT. CRT is just a range, okay? You mark up the high of the candle, the low of the candle, and 50% of the candle range. All right? Now, I am going to mark up this gap right here because price could come down here and then continue higher. All right. So this is what we have right now. Our weekly CRT range and then this weekly fair value gap. All right, now we're going to come down to our daily. Let's see what we have. All right, it looks like price came down into this gap right here on the daily. It pushed up higher, and then it pushed down lower, and then it pushed up higher, and then it pushed down lower. So price is playing around in this area. Yep, that's 50% perfectly, so I'm not going to mark that on top of that. All right, let's see. Let's go down to the 4 hour. All right, so after hitting this gap, as you can see, it pushed up higher, gave us a little pullback, it ran that area, and then it came back lower. Friday, it ended with this really bullish candle. It ended with this really bullish candle. We're on top of this gap right here. And then we have another gap right here. Now, gold is like indices. You don't need a really big move. So really, you could just trade this range right here and make some decent money. Let's go down to the 1 hour. Let's see what that looks like. Price destroyed this 4 hour gap, right? We didn't get any type of pullback. I would want to see a pullback onto this gap area, and then you could possibly even get one right here, but I doubt it, into this gap area and then trade it up into this one. Let's go a little lower. See, we already knew that gold was bullish, right? Okay, here we go. We got